it should be pretty easy. Uh, and yeah, so I guess I'll get started. Hey
Perfect.
Evan, thanks for taking the time to meet with me.
Yeah.
My name's Brandon, and I am in a minor for project management. I understand that you are a project manager, and if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I wear a lot of hats. I work for a mostly residential focused small architecture firm in Bluffton, South Carolina. I'm a project manager, I'm a licensed architect. I head up our business development and marketing, sales. I'm also part owner of the company, so lots of different tasks.
Yeah, I'll prioritize tasks on a day-to-day basis with so many moving parts.
Yeah, we always start off our week at the beginning of the week on Monday. We do an all team meeting just to kind of high level check what's going on. We have a lot of deadlines, which is pretty similar to most companies that are going to have, tasks that have either internal or external submittal dates or deadlines to send things to clients. We look at a sort of monthly schedule as a whole team. Then we break that down into what we're working on that week at the end of that meeting. And then personally, I usually take like an afternoon, like a Sunday, or I'm an early riser, so early Monday mornings, and I write down kind of all the projects I'm supposed to be working on, um, all the tasks that are associated with those, and then kind of prioritize what's the one, two, three, four list of those projects that I'm going to work on. And then I like to keep that list open or at least in like a sketchbook or something next to me so that during
Mhm.
the day I can always kind of know what I should be working on. If I have a lull in something, I can always go back to that.
Do you and the other owners or project managers get together, say like three, four of you, and then discuss those and then present that on your Monday meetings?
Yeah, we talk about it at a high level sort of twice a week. We do that Monday morning all team meeting, and we're all kind of strategizing on what's going to be submitted and when they're going to be submitted. If we need to update those timelines, we do that. I know one of your questions is, I think, probably going to be what tools we use, but
Yeah.
we organize everything in Google Sheets. There's some software that you can use that also kind of dovetails with your project management, like time allocation, time sheets, things like that. We haven't really gotten into that, and we'd like to, but we use Google Sheets to organize all of our projects and when those submittals are due by and when they were submitted, that ties to billing and things like that. But we meet on that Monday and talk about stuff, and then we also meet on Wednesdays in the afternoon because it's kind of halfway through the week. Wednesdays are big submittals days for us for neighborhoods down here.
Yeah.
So we'll also kind of debrief on stuff that we worked on and then also find the tasks for our interns or younger employees that are kind of underneath our management.
Yeah. So how do you deal with a multi-generational I guess you could say workplace, and how do you cater towards their strengths, say like on paper or as in a younger generation where it's electronic? Do you cater towards that, or do you expect everyone to be on the same page, learning the same material through there?
We're definitely really flexible about like whatever works for you works for us. Historically, architecture has been on paper. We do a lot of hand drawing and hand writing. Most of the younger generations have moved towards computers and notes in their apps on their phone or notes in the computer or even recording like records or voice memos if they need to like decide tasks and things like that. It's not a one size fits all. We definitely want to keep all of our information organized on the computer. So again, back to those Google Sheets and making sure that everybody's updating those. But
Yeah.
we're very open for like whatever works for anybody.
So how important is updating that Google Sheet, and then where and what happens if someone doesn't update it, and how does that affect you as a project manager, and how do you resolve those issues with, your day-to-day task, and then you yourself having to resolve that issue?
Yeah. There's kind of checks and balances on all these things because our bookkeeper is offsite. She lives in Waynesville, Georgia, or excuse me, Waynesville, North Carolina. So she's remote. So she's always checking in weekly or at least bi-weekly on project statuses because she needs to know when to bill and how much to bill for. So she checks in with the project managers, which then sort of cues us to say, oh, how much have we worked on that? And if I have somebody working underneath me or with me on a project, then that cues me to ask them, hey, how much have you worked on this? It's nice if it gets updated because then I can just go look at it and see what the status is. But
Yeah.
it's nice to have that sort of like circular feedback to where we're always prompted to do it. And then I always, at the end of each week, I set aside time on like Friday mornings or Friday afternoons just to again go through my task list of all the projects that I'm working on and make sure I've updated all my clients, or at least updated my clients that there's no update so that they know and they're prepared to understand where we are in the process.
Yeah. Okay. So moving into your personal time management, how do you balance your own time between managing your team and then completing your own tasks?
It's tough. It's a balance for sure. I I know that I like to bounce a lot in between different projects. So for me, it's not as important as managing teammates who might need tasks to be delegated to them. So I like to check in with them in the morning and then also kind of check in throughout the day and just say, hey, how's that task going? Or hey, do you have any questions? I very much encourage questions and feedback. And if they need to run something by me, I'm happy to kind of hop off a task. I also like to do a lot of time blocking. So I block out mornings to do emails and just check in with clients, contractors, vendors, consultants, and then I block out some time in the afternoon to do the same thing. And that I don't always stick to it, but ideally you do mornings, afternoons, then you free up the middle of the day to have meetings, production, working on drawings and things like that. And then I can always pop in with teammates that I'm managing to make sure that they have what they need so that I can do everything else in the background.
Yeah. So for like you said, with your teammates, what's the most effective way that you found to delegate tasks, but also without micromanaging, your coworkers? So just
Yeah.
curious on that.
It's tough because you don't want to overstep, but you also want to give them a lot of support, and
Yeah.
you don't want them to feel like you're looking over their shoulder, but you also want to make sure that the like quality control is there.
Mhm.
So the Monday and the Wednesday staff meetings, project manager meetings are really helpful to both list out all the tasks they are working on or could be working on, and so no one's it's to kind of get ahead of the idea that nobody's sitting there with nothing to do.
Right.
So we'll prioritize those lists based on things they could be working on. And I also like to, I'm in a lot of meetings, whether it's with contractors or clients or offsite, like marketing, trying to get new sales or new projects signed up. So I always make sure if I'm leaving or if I'm about to step into a task, I say, hey, do you know what you're working on? If you finish that, do you have a backup project that you're working on? Is there anything you'd rather be working on? Because if they have three tasks and they like one of them better, by all means, do the one that you enjoy the best, or do the one that you're not really excited about, so you can finish with the one that you are excited about. We have so much going on that it's nice to kind of flip it back and forth between all the projects so you get a little bit of variety.
Yeah, so when you're looking at your projects, do you look at the long-term goal or do you focus on the short term, getting it done by a certain date and then just using that as a stepping stone, or do you like to look at it as a big picture and having that end date in mind?
Both. It's definitely yes and because clients want to know when they sign up, say they hired us to design a custom home. They're gonna want to know when do I get my plans and start construction. And typically that could be like 6 months or 8 months or 10 months or a year and a half. It's usually around the 6 to 8 month mark. So I like to break that down into milestones so that they can have something to look forward to and so that we can sort of have milestones to hit to know that we're on track. So most projects go through a neighborhood submittal, like a design review board. That makes it pretty easy because it's usually like a three-step process. So conceptual, preliminary design, and final design, and then the deliverable for like a permit set of drawings. Um, Even if it's not through a neighborhood, we still break it down like that. And we
Yeah.
also kind of know, conceptual, that first phase roughly takes 25% of the job. The preliminary takes roughly, I don't know, 35% of the job. And then so we know that the last phase is going to take about 40%. And we break that down into the weeks and say, okay, then the conceptual will take 4 weeks and prelim will take 2 months. And so we even break that down further into weeks and say, if I'm going to be working on preliminary, what are the tasks that I need to do? It's
Right.
these 20 tasks. So then you break down, okay, I'm going to do these three tasks this week, and these three tasks next week. And so we have a checklist of kind of running items that we need to be working on that can keep us on track throughout the whole project.
Yeah, of course. So going into like how you said you block and you time block your schedule. So when you're managing your time and an unexpected issue arises and that it's your specialty or your strength where you're needed, how do you manage your tasks that you have to do by the end of the day with the unexpected task that you are needed with?
Yeah, that's tough because it happens all the time. I mean, projects come
Yeah.
up, or we like to say opportunities arise. Things come up during projects that are unforeseen, and we know they're going to happen. So we try and build in a little bit of wiggle room. We always kind of have a rule. If you think something's going to take you X amount of time, always assume it's going to take about 30% longer because
Mhm.
it just gives you a little bit of wiggle room for if things don't go as you plan. And if things do go as you plan, at least you have a little bit of extra time to say pick up a task you're supposed to work on tomorrow or make space for something that pops up in the middle of the day.
Okay. And then do you also relate that to helping your coworkers out where they need your help and then you have to stop what you're doing to help them?
Yeah, we kind of have a culture of like it's a very small firm. There's seven of us on the design staff. So we know that we're going to all help each other and work on projects. Any one of us has anywhere between 5 to 12 houses they're working on, in addition to, other just project management, office coordination, administration stuff. So we like to help each other, but we like to also be cognizant of like when you're in a deep state of working. So if someone asked me, for instance, hey, I really need your eyes on this project. Can you give me a second? I'll say, yeah, let me finish this task. I'm probably done in like 10 minutes and then I'll come over there. And that way I can like finish what I'm doing, get in a mindset to help them out, and then help them fully without thinking about the task that I was in the middle of.
Yeah, it does. And going off that, does that help you prevent like a burnout when you're working on multiple tasks to stop what you're doing and then to help other people, even though you have, like your set time block and even like a mental, calendar and checklist in your head?
Yeah, it definitely helps. I think it would be tough if we only worked on like if I only had two houses and that's all I was doing. We
Yeah,
joke like it would be fun because then it's you could really get into it. But I think I would get really tired of it because it's the variety is what's really fun. Because I'll be working on say two contemporary homes, one very traditional low country home, and one residential or one commercial project, and maybe some master planning for a neighborhood in another state. And then I get to pop into one of my coworkers' projects and kind of give them a little, 60,000 foot advice that sometimes when you're working on something for so long, you just need somebody else to like come and take a look at it and be like, oh, well, of course, like here's the answer.
yeah,
And I do the same thing for my projects. If I'm getting burned out on a project, I'll go take a walk around the block or like work on something else or answer emails or I don't know, just get on my phone and cruise on some architecture Instagram pages or something just to get the juices flowing, then get back to it.
yeah. So going off of your projects and as a, co-owner and a project manager, and on the design staff, getting a lot of projects on your plate, how do you personally decide which ones to delegate to help with the balance of your tasks?
A couple different factors. We on those Monday morning meetings, the Wednesday meetings, and every now and then, probably once a quarter, we do like a really high level planning meeting to see who's working on what and kind of what our bandwidth is per person.
Yeah,
Um, if someone has 15 houses and they are slammed with everything and they're up against deadlines for the next 4 months, obviously they're not going to get the next project, even if it's something that they would want. We
yeah.
so it's a little bit of time management and just seeing who has the bandwidth to do it. The other factor is what people like working on because, like I mentioned, we want people to work on projects that they're excited about because they'll ideally put more work into it or put better work into it.
So now we're switching into a little bit of, some more tasks
Okay.
that you like to manage. Um, so when a task is delayed, what are some of the steps that you do to get the project back on ta track without overwhelming your team?
Yeah, projects go on hold pretty often, especially in our world where, if an interest rate changes and a client freaks out and wants to put a pause on things, we've got to kind of just go with the flow. We kind of have in we have in our contracts a clause that basically says if it goes on hold for more than 2 weeks or so, we may have to shift things. And we do just that. So, like, if they say, hey, we need to pause for a little bit and think about this, or we might pick this up at, another month or two, we'll say, okay, we appreciate that and understand what's going on, but we'll just need to reassess. So then we'll go on our weekly meetings, or I'll go internally on the projects I'm working on and shift things up, which can help sometimes if we're a little behind on other projects, and just kind of shuffle things around to make sure that the projects we do have are either getting bumped up or prioritized or reprioritized, I guess. And then when it
Yeah.
comes back online, we just kind of have to figure out where to slide it back in.
Cool. All right. And just a couple of last questions on just advice as a project manager.
Mhm.
Um, what advice what's the main thing, what's the main takeaway if you want to give a aspiring project manager?
Yeah, I think journaling, noting, writing down your tasks is really helpful. You know, it's helpful to have everything in your head, but if it's not written down, sometimes it's a little hard to remember everything. So
Mhm.
whether that's like on your iPhone notes or your computer, it's a Google Doc. I keep a sketchbook so I can physically look back and check things. I'm a checklist person, so I
Yeah.
like to check them off as I get them done. I just think get it out somewhere other than your head. And that always helps because you can always add to it, take away from it, and share with others versus just kind of stewing over it. It helps you not think about it in the middle of the night too, because
Yeah.
you're like, oh, wait, what do I need to remember? It's all written down.
Gotcha.